Feels like it's been ages. I hope everyone is well. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to another session. Let's start in a few seconds. Let's see if we're going to start as soon as my clock hits 7 minutes past 2. And then we can kick it off. I'm going to share my screen so long. Oopsie daisy, not at the start. All right, cool. Thank you, everybody. Looking forward to the session. As per normal, if you guys would like to ask anything, please raise your hand. I hope I see it. I've got you or the one view on the other screen, so I should. If there's any questions, just fire away, and I'll address them as best as possible. And if anyone has anything that they've learned so far or want to share, please do that. That would be great. It's always good to have a collaborative effort and share ideas. So today's session on business model validation. At the end of the day, there is as we've said previously, you can't just have a good product. You need to have a good business model. And as with the product and with your problem statement and your business model, we need to validate all the time. We can't assume, we can't spend a lot of time and effort and go to market, and then we are building something that's actually, that people don't like, or that's not viable at the end of the day. So that's pretty much a summary of what today's session is going to be about. So I'm going to fire away. We're going to be looking at what is business model validation, the 3 fits that we need to achieve in our journey, and how do we perform business model validation, and why do we do business model validation in the first place. Okay, so business model validation provides a structured space for you to set up and build upon the experiments you'll need to run to test critical assumptions. It will save you time by falsifying hypotheses in your business model before you proceed to product market fit. Okay, a little bit of a mouthful, but just what it basically stands out. It's going to be a lot that one needs to test a lot. You need to falsify your hypotheses or find them to be true, either way, as long as you know which way it is. And then once you've done that, you can actually then take your product to the market and then start selling it, because by that time you actually know, and you've got some good insight that things are actually working and that there is indeed some traction. Okay, so we've briefly touched on this in previous sessions, but we need to, first of all, there's 3 broad fits that one needs to get. The first one is the problem solution fit, second one is the business model fit, and the third one is your product market fit. So even these things might seem sequential, but they're not. And I think one can always come back to the problem, go to the business model, go to the product, and kind of flick and change and switch between these fits as you proceed and as you do your analysis, and you gain more understanding about your customer and your markets and so forth. But the problem solution fit is the very first thing I could ask you guys to fill out with Rubik's Cube. That's where we ask, what's the problem, what's the solution, etc., and we proceed right through to business model. And the thing we want to do here is to get problem fit. We want to actually ask, is this problem that we're trying to solve something real in the world? So if you have a problem, if you provide ice cream, if you have a business and you provide ice cream on the beach, if the problem that you're solving is that it's a hot day, people get thirsty, you can provide them with a product that can quench that thirst and make them a little bit cooler. You take that idea to customers and you get feedback, and they either tell you that it's going to work for them or it's not going to work. So now let's say you've got a product, then you go to the product. Let's go to product market fit from here, just for interest's sake. As I say, we can fluctuate. You can actually go to any of them. But now that you know that you've solved that problem, you can go product market fit. And if you just read over here, it occurs when you have evidence that your value proposition is actually creating value for customers by alleviating their pain and creating their gains that they desire. So now you know that people like an ice cream on a hot summer's day, but now you've refined your value proposition. You have got someone that goes to you where you sit on the beach. They maybe sing a song. They give you that lovely strawberry syrup over your ice cream, etc. And you just soup this ice cream up to make it really enticing, and that's how you sell it to people. And from that, you get feedback from them. And then now that you know that you're solving a problem and you know that people will buy your product, you have to go back to your business model, because the person that's doing the dance and the lovely strawberry sauce, etc., that all costs money, and that all needs to be produced and to be maintained. Your value proposition by all time needs to be produced and it needs to be maintained. And this is done within your business model, which you will see a little bit later. So just business model fit occurs when you have evidence that your value proposition is embedded in a profitable and sustainable model. So all those things you need to do to maintain and produce the value proposition, that all boils down to costs. But your value proposition might be so valuable that it will obviously be valuable, but the amount of revenue that you can charge will obviously be proportionate to the value and to the problem that you're going to solve for your customer. But at the end of the day, the business model needs to add up. You need to make more money than what it's going to cost you at the end of the day. And that's the definition of a viable business model. I just quickly want to, I think we should just maybe discuss the next slide. So just a little bit more on how do we perform business model validation. We first of all need to ensure that we're solving a real problem, as mentioned before. We need to build customer personas, get into our customers' minds and craft our value proposition. We need to then basically ensure that our value proposition is actually delivered and that we can ensure that we can produce and maintain this value proposition. And we will do that by determining who will assist us in our partners, what activities do we need to do, what's the resources we need to consume, and what will it cost at the end of the day. And then, as I mentioned, we need to compare costs to revenue and see if our revenue obviously outweigh our costs. So before we proceed, I'm just going to play you a little clip, a video of a person just explaining what is business model innovation. So I hope you enjoy it.
Today's episode is brought to you by Carbonite. How do you validate a business model before you start? Coming up. I'm Jay Adelson, and I'm the founder and chairman of Revision 3. I've started and built a number of companies. My goal in this show is to pass on some of the knowledge from my experiences to you, the budding entrepreneurs, and hopefully leave you with some words of wisdom. Today's question comes from Marvin, who asks, what are some ways to validate a business model before building product? What questions do you ask potential users? Did you do it before starting Equinix, Revision 3, or Dig? Marvin, it's a great question. You want to de-risk to some extent your startup. You want to know that your product is going to have relevance and be successful before you start. I mean, part of the risk here, of course, of being an entrepreneur is there's some things you can never know until you get started. Sometimes the best products get released that are way better than anything else in the market and still don't do as well as products that aren't as well built. And yet, that's just part of the game. And you just keep repeating, lather, rinse, repeat until you get one at the right timing and the right product in the right market. However, your question is interesting because there are opportunities to reduce that risk. You asked about my experience. Equinix was interesting because the typical investment for a telecom company to participate in Equinix up front was $15 million per city, because they had to trench dark fiber to get into the room, and then they had to put a bunch of dark fiber equipment in the data center. And so one customer, it's like the opposite of pre-vetting. There was no way for me to prove that they were going to have customers who would buy their services before they put their fiber in there. And so I kind of had to cheat a little And I used competition to get them to come in. I would tell one telephone company the other guy was coming in, and tell the other guy was coming in, and eventually competition would drive him in, and fortunately it worked. So in that case, I couldn't really pre-vet that product. However, I was able to do research of other types of customers who consume those services. An example would be an internet service provider who needed data center services, who were struggling to get the connectivity and the bandwidth at the prices they needed. So what I would do is effectively customer research. I would go in to the customer. I would say, okay, what are the pain points that you're feeling? I wouldn't lead them by telling them this is the product I'm going to give them. I would just go in and ask them the same questions and make sure they're the same questions, and then compare the results. And out of 50 content providers in 1998, I found that they were all suffering the same problems, and our product would address them. The only way to actually test it was to build a prototype and see if they would join. I also cheated a little bit there too, because in the case of Equinix, before Equinix, I helped start a project called the Palo Alto Internet Exchange, where Digital Equipment Corporation actually funded a prototype. I believe they put $3 million into our project to build a functional prototype in Palo Alto, California. So we're kind of risk-free test. Now Dig, slightly different. Dig, the cost of building your product and testing it with the users was so low. We're talking about $1,500 to $2,000. So you create your product, don't bother going and asking the questions, show them the prototype. You believe that it's interesting, let's see what they do with it. And Kevin Rose actually exposed Dig on Tech TV, I think it was Tech TV, on the screensavers, and it was really one of those moments where it could either succeed or fail, and if it failed, you could iterate, and it wouldn't really be so painful. Now, in the case of Revision 3, well, yeah, pre-vetting a product is kind of hard. We created a system. David Prager and Kevin Rose and Dan Heward and Keith Harrison, Ron Gorodetsky. Basically, the way that we did that was we created the episode and then shared it with our friends and and asked them what they thought. It's again, this is a case of creating the prototype and seeing what happens. Anyway, more on pre-vetting your ideas in a second, but first let's thank our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Carbonite. Carbonite protects your pictures and your other files from a computer crash, fire, theft, and when you accidentally delete a file by automatically and continually backing up your files and keeping them securely off-site. You'll never have to remember to back up again. Whether you have one or two computers at home or several computers at your small business, Carbonite is the better backup plan. Over 1 million customers trust Carbonite to protect their home and small business computer files, with plans starting at just $59 a year. Start your free trial at Carbonite.com with the offer code AskJ, and you'll get 2 bonus months if you decide to buy. That's Carbonite.com, and the offer code for 2 bonus months is J. Marvin, it's important to focus again on those pain points that customers are feeling, right? Try and find questions that are common between different customers. Don't customize it for different customers. Otherwise, your data becomes hard to manage. A good example of a question might be, what are the things that are gating you from your own success in your own business? What are the friction points for revenue for you? What are the elements to the marketplace which concern you for the future? General the tactics, the very specific things on their day-to-day execution of their business. Ask them questions that are the same about how you would fit in. Obviously, this has to be changed a little bit depending on what the set of products and services you want to offer. But what's important is never to lead your customer into a particular answer. You've got to get good data that isn't colored by the fact that they're a little nervous around you or they want to make you happy. Thanks for joining us. Questions go to askj@revision3.com. Please ask me. Also, my Twitter feed, @jadelson. Very interesting stuff coming in through there. Please keep that coming. And the YouTube channel, youtube.com/askjadelson. Love to see more video questions, please. They're really fun. I love it when they're coming in. Anyway, thanks for joining us, and until next time.
Thanks for that, for your time there, guys. I want to play us another one. And that's about the value proposition canvas explained through the Uber example. So now we've had a little bit of an idea of about what it is and how one can go about building products to get feedback and then from there alter your business model. Let's have a look at how you go actually a little bit deeper. And I think the fact that we all know what Uber is and have experienced the services will give us a nice insight into how this is done and then how we can then take this insight a little bit further.
Hello, this is Anna at Railsware. In our last video, we have discovered how does the Lean Canvas work for validating your startup business model. Today, we'll focus on the value your product offers to your customers by learning how to use the value proposition canvas. We will also see how the value proposition canvas works for Uber, back when it was getting off the ground. If you have any questions or ideas along the way, please share them with us in the comments. Both startups and existing businesses fight for their place in the market by introducing their products and services. However, not all of them are destined to succeed with customers. More than half of new propositions fail to meet customers' expectations and fade away. You can avoid failure only if you identify your customers' problems and give them the design, features, and functionality they want. And that's what a value proposition canvas can help you with. The value proposition canvas originates from the business canvas. This is a sort of shortened business plan designed to create the value of your idea by breaking it down into 9 essential components. 2 of them, unique value proposition and customer segments, form the value proposition canvas, the tool that allows you to design, test, and visualize the value of your product for customers in a structured way. The value proposition canvas is divided into 2 parts, the customer profile, circle, and the value map, square. Each part consists of 3 sections that describe specific features of a customer or product respectively. The circle on the right refers to the customer segment. It describes the motivation to buy the product and consists of jobs to be done, gains, and pains. This part explains why the customer needs this product. The square on the left features the value map by listing products and services, as well as describing pain relievers and gain creators. The best way to understand the practicality of the value proposition canvas is to investigate it through an example. We've decided to use Uber as an example back in the time of its foundation and focus on one customer segment, passengers. So, here we go. Let's go back in time to when Uber did not exist yet. How would Uber's founders describe taxi passengers' pains back then? We start with the customer profile and jobs your customers need to have done. Don't focus on the functional jobs only. Emotional and social ones are also essential. We pick the following jobs for taxi service users: contact a good service, control cost for the ride, wait for the cab for some unknown amount of time, and pay for the trip. Pains include blockages and problems your customers may face trying to get the jobs done. In our case, taxi customers could experience low cab availability, bad drivers can happen, need to book a cab in advance, and issues with payment for the taxi service, cash or card. The next step is to specify gains. They are more than just the opposite of the pains. Gains describe positive outcomes the customer expects when the job is getting done. These include benefits, aspirations, and results like trusted driver, 0 time and payment, one-click order or cancellation, and tracking your cab. Once we have shaped the customer profile, we can move forward to the value map. Here we begin with products and services your value proposition offers to get the jobs done. Our list consists of Passengers mobile app, Uber Pop, UberX, and Black Cab. Then we need to describe how products or services can minimize or reduce the mentioned pains and outline in which way they create the gain. Pain relievers are meant to improve the customer experience. We chose 24/7, 365 availability of cabs, driver ratings, arrival and travel time prediction, and flawless automatic payment. As gain creators, an Uber customer can expect a rating system, automatic credit card payment, the ability to manage all trip details on a single platform, and navigating your trip on the map. The value proposition canvas aims at achieving a fit between what the customer wants and what your product or service can offer to our campaigns and generate gains. In practice, your customer profile may have tons of jobs to be done, pains and gains, but the value map outlines which of them you focus on. The more items from the right part have matches on the left one, the higher the probability that your product will strike home. Do not forget that the value proposition canvas is a detailed extract from the lean canvas or business model canvas. Therefore, the success of your future product depends on how good the entire canvas is. A holistic approach to assessing what your customer wants and what you can provide is the path to success. That was the intro to the value proposition canvas. If you found this video helpful, press thumbs up and subscribe for the Railsware YouTube channel. Suggest us ideas on the topics for our next videos in the comments below. Thank you for watching and stay tuned.
Lovely. I think that is a great video, just to once again recap what the value proposition canvas is about, also how important it is. And I think what is increasingly important, she mentioned a couple of times that the canvas actually, stems from the business model canvas, and that's exactly what our session is about. Is that when we go through these paces, at the end of the day, we want to have a viable business model. So we go through a couple of steps, as we've mentioned, and we need to now understand whether our business model is going to be viable or not. So maybe if we can just go back to the first thing that all of you guys captured as part of the course is basically this core ideation and solution design. And to maybe just to refresh your minds, very simple. We looked at problems, solutions, the value proposition, channels, customers, revenues, relationships. Now these things, obviously, if we go back to our slide, this is for us to create the problem solution fit. When we then go and we have a look at the customer development, which is a part we will still get to, and I think it's quite important that all of you guys do this. If we look at the details over there, we once have our customers, we've got the jobs that they need to do, and then the pain relievers, gains, gain creators, as that was specified in the video above. At the end of the day, if you go through this really well, and you actually look at all these thingies, you've got a very good idea of what it is you need to build for the product, your product that you need to build, that you're going to offer, your product or service you're going to offer to your clients. So when we have this insight from customers, we actually use those pains and pain relievers, gains, and gain creators, and we actually then construct a journey. We're in the customer's journey from the point that they know about us to the point where they subscribe, to the point where they start using our products and services, to the point where they actually maybe leave us. How can we then use that and plot that out? And how can we actually link these with the mechanisms we're going to use to relieve these pains and to create those gains along the journey? And we do that within use cases where we say, okay, well, this is where they sign up, this is where they use that feature, etc. And then for each of those use cases, we actually come up with scenarios, and we describe Tabello's just here in the lobby. I'm just going to admit him. And we basically start describing in greater detail how our product is going to work, and how we're going to actually build it. So once we have that kind of information, this is what we just do in this model on Rubik's Cube called, in Incube, the name has changed, called MVP specification development. So with all that customer insight, we now develop a specification that we're then going to use to actually build our products. And once we have that, then we've got an idea what the value proposition, a very solid idea of what the value proposition should be. And once we have that, then it brings us back to our business model canvas. Sorry, let me just quickly refresh there. Brings us back to our business model canvas. And it's now here where we need to find the most viable way to maintain and produce our value proposition. So we've got our value proposition over here. As we can see, I'm just going to quickly highlight it first over there. And now through all the development that we've done the problem solution fit, we've done a little bit of product market fit, and now we come here and we say that, okay, we've got an idea of how we want to deliver our product through which channels. We also have an idea of who those actual customers are. But now we need to actually have a look and say that, okay, well, who's the people that's going to help us to do this? Those are our partners here to the left-hand side. Between us and them, there's certain key activities that we will need to perform. And obviously these key activities are going to consume resources. And obviously at the end of the day, this all boils down to certain costs we will have to incur. Now, through our previous sessions and previous analysis and design efforts, we've actually come up with a few revenue streams. And this is what business model validation is going to be about. You need to understand what it is that we need to do to produce and maintain this value proposition, and how valuable this proposition, the more valuable this proposition is, the more we can actually charge here in our revenue streams. But to produce a value proposition to a certain quality, it's obviously going to take certain costs. So it's always a good idea to keep, specifically in the early stages, maybe have a couple of business models, if I can put it that way, even if the difference between them is quite subtle. But to experiment with them and to see what actually further works in the market. Because now, previously we just made sure we're solving a problem. Then we said that, okay, well, will this value proposition work for you in the real world? But now with the business model, there's so many more dynamics involved here that we will need to keep an eye on to make sure that we have a viable business model. And the only way, as with the previous two fits, to get business model fit and to validate your business model, you're going to have to test and see which of your assumptions were true and which weren't. So yeah, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say about that through Rubik's Cube. We've discussed the three fits. We've discussed a bit on how we perform business model validation. And then just to basically wrap up, why would we want to do it? Is just to ensure that we can produce and maintain our value proposition, that our revenue is greater than our costs, and so that we can have multiple configurations of our business model and determine which is best to pursue at a specific point in time. I think what we've mentioned previously is that also you will maybe realize that you have different business models. Some might be more viable than others, but some of them might be the most practical one that you can, at this point in time, or at a specific point in time, relative to whichever constraint maybe roll out. And then one can actually work on to more complicated, more lucrative ones, but which might be more risky or costly. And yeah, thank you so much. That's it from my side on business model validation. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to hear from you. Andile, you're not going to give us some of your wisdom again today.
Oh, okay. In terms of, the advice that I've been coming across, so is that I shouldn't look at actually developing drone. What I can do, I can buy a drone and actually render services or use that drone to improve or add certain sensors, not go into my because I don't have a business. So in terms of instance, when one is looking at actually testing the market, what will be the first or initial step in validating the value of the market?
In your case?
Yes.
Well, I think you
Because
will
now
go.
I'm not gonna go the route of designing, manufacturing the drone, because it's not an area of
No,
my expertise. But
no.
as I've been advised that I buy a drone, probably I add some sensors, and then, so would it be advisable probably to start rent and have some kind of a proof of value before I even taking the route of actually buying mine?
Absolutely. So, I mean, as you rightfully said, your business is not drones. You're going to use drones from another company. So you need to determine exactly what is your product and your service going to look like, and what that is going to be. I do. We can quickly pull up your Incube thingy over here. Yeah, so you say your value proposition is crop management and precision agriculture made better through solar powered drone technology. Okay, so crop management and precision agriculture. So whatever you mean there, I don't fully understand your business at this point in time. That's the stuff that you're going to do. You're going to use the drone, obviously, to do that for you. Let's see, push the boundaries of crop protection. So you need to show them, how are you going to protect their crops, and how are you going to do this crop management and precision agriculture. So your MVP, if you go into your value proposition canvas, and you speak about, let's just leave that as farmers, you need to understand in terms of what you want to offer. What is it that in their world, you need to go into their world and see what is it that they need to do that I can go and help them. So your test would then be, how can you then shape what you think is going to be valuable based on the feedback that you've got, and you then package that and say that, okay, I'm going to, for argument's sake, go to your farm for a week. We're going to deploy this drone, and we're going to get the images that we need. And we will then from there do the crop management and the precision agriculture. And at the end of the day, what's the other thing that I've read here? Yeah, and provide you with the better information for better decision making. So then you're going to, for instance, go set up your drone, fly over there, collect the information that you require. And then you, for argument's sake, going to present this information for them to make better decisions. And you will then gradually know what information will work and what doesn't work. You will also understand when you can and cannot fly. So it will basically, there's a term that they say, get out of the building. And I think there's obviously no other way for you to test your product and your services by getting out of the building. Otherwise, your drone is going to fly into your ceiling. But then you actually go out and you do your service as best as you think it should be done. Give the finished product to the farmer and then get the feedback and then adjust your offering from there. Does that make sense? Sorry, Andine, I'm not sure if I didn't hear you, but did that help?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much. So, can I elaborate more on terms of crop management? Because crop management is actually split into 6 phases. So it's planning, planting, growing, harvesting, and marketing. So
Okay.
drone can actually play a role in actually 5 phases when you remove the one where you plant, because you definitely are not going to be able to use drone to plant. So in that sense, when you for planning, you can take the area or the number of hectares, you map the farm, so you know the the amount of land that you have, so that you will be able to plan properly when it comes to selecting the right crop.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you see what I've done over here. So now we've basically started plotting up your customer's journey.
Oh, okay.
So this is the journey that they will go through as part of your product. So we can add stuff here before, you know, in terms of registration and onboarding and whatnot. But these are also main phases that you can help them in. So you can actually now shape your offering, your value proposition to these phases, because they will know what pains they have during planning and planting and harvesting, etc. And then you can actually interview them and say, okay, you know, with the research that I've done, and this is what they say we can help you with, and it's like a to and fro exercise, and you shape your offering from there based on this journey. And how it will then work is that for each of these journeys, phases, you will create what we call a use case, and this is just a structured way that we can actually write out, you know, for you, how are you then going to service your client in these phases along the journey.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay, I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you very much.
No, great. And thank you for populating your canvas so well. I see it's quite thoroughly done. It looks really good. I'll work a bit through it and I'll see where I can assist you a little bit more.
Okay, thank you very much.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Tebogo.
Hi.
Hi, welcome. Are you well?
Yes. I think I'm kind of struggling with my revenue model.
Okay.
Because there's certain restaurants that I just charge a flat delivery fee, and then there's another restaurant that I charge a delivery fee plus a commission. And then there's also a third party service that I just charge a flat delivery fee. But so I don't know which. So should I start charging as like via like a subscription, or like I don't know now because it's all just confusing. Because
Okay,
I was
so
thinking of taking the subscription route, but then taking into account the like order volumes in the specific town, it's just not gonna work. So I'm having a hard time with like the pricing and stuff. Yeah.
okay, that's always a difficult one. It will obviously be a little difficult for me to comment right now, but I'm willing to spend some time with you and see that. Okay, see, you know, what's a few options, and you talk about a third party, so we'll have to look at who's your partners, and what is it that they will need to do over here in key activities, and then obviously what's that going to cost, and that will influence your model over here. We can have a look at a few options. I'll schedule some time with you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay. Siatemba, how are you?
I'm fine, Jin. How are you, man?
No, I'm very well, thanks. Have you found this session helpful?
It is helpful. I'm in my in-cube as we speak. I was watching when you were helping our guy, the farmer. So I was trying to fill up some gaps. So yes,
Okay.
it is helpful. But I think I have this very same problem with the lady that just spoke with you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Tebo, because I've been searching for internet service providers price lists. I'm not winning. I think they've not made those public, or they've not posted those online. Because last week I was going through my codes and invoices, only to find out that I'm not charging the same customer the same amount of service rendered. Let's say on this invoice, let's take example of N220 primary school, for instance. They call me today for their computers are not working properly. One of their computers is going on and off after load shedding, for example. Then I go and service it. Then they'll call me. I'll charge them for this week. They call me again next week after load shedding or after heavy rains. Then I'll charge them a different amount compared to the one I've charged them. So I have a real big problem in terms of being consistent in charging my clients.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't the two of you please email me with just a little bit of a description of what your issue is, and then I can have a look at it and get back to you. Tebogo, if you could please do the same, that would be great.
All right,
Okay.
I'll do that. Okay.
All right, cool. Anyone else? Nick, I think I would love to hear from you as well. You've been hit by COVID with your business that you couldn't export your stuff. You had to have a pretty, I'm sure, a big kind of business model change. How did you guys go about in that? Do you feel that, what approach did you guys use? If you kind of, pivoted, used a new model, and what was the upsides and the downsides on whichever approach you took?
Oh, I'm sorry, Chin. Before Nick answers, I'm sorry. Can you please take me through the assumptions? What do we feel in assumptions? Please take me through that quickly.
So in assumptions, it's along the journey, you need to put yourself in your customer's shoes, and you will not have all the information at your disposal. You will need to confirm certain things. And what the assumptions is about is that if you don't know something, you plot it down as an assumption on a specific point in the journey, and you will need to go and ask the customer or actually look at how they do certain things, and then either say this assumption is true or this assumption is false. And if it's false, that's a good thing, because that is something that you would have assumed is going to be part of your product offering or your customer's reality, and it wasn't actually at the end of the day. I will add some examples actually to all these blocks, just to make things a little bit more clear, and that it's a little bit more understandable, and to actually have an example of an assumption that will then help you a lot. Did that help, Siatemba?
Yes, Chen. Yes, it is. As if you can put something under assumptions, then I'll be able to take it from there. Thank you, sir.
Sure. All right. Okay, Nick, is there any wisdom that you can share with us today?
The wisdom part, I'm not sure, but the experience part, yes. Okay. So look, what we have gone through in the couple of months is to basically shake us up and probably try to give us a reborn or rebirth of how our business is modeled. So what we have picked, and what I'm picking from this session, is that you see the product fits and all that is very important when you relate it to what market is it that you are going to be selling in, because what we have seen is the way that the rest of Africa does things is different from the way that South Africa does things. So it meant that the model that we had, for it to be fit for South Africa and for the rest of Africa, is very difficult. So
Nick, can I just quickly stop you there? So, Siatemba, there's a great assumption. You build a business in South Africa. You assume that everyone out of Africa would operate the same, and it's not the case. Sorry for interrupting you, Nick. Please proceed.
No problem. So what it does is now to say you have to go back to the drawing board. And unfortunately, when we started this business, we didn't have all this structure, to even do business model validation and to do, a canvas and all those kind of things, which could have made us to have looked at all these things before we started diving in. But as entrepreneurs, you see a gap, you dive in, then you see where it is leaning, you change towards that, and all that. So the big lessons that we have learned is that things are different. But number two, the thing that we have learned is from this, the difference is the major difference is that if when you talk about internet penetration, if you are going to run an e-commerce business, you want the internet penetration to be higher and people to be using to have access to smartphones so that they're able to even go through. But we talk about data being expensive and we talk about that, but the rest of Africa, we talk about half of the clients don't even know how to operate off of all these smartphones, and most of them is just, they just need a phone for WhatsApp, and that's it. If they say they're going on the net, they're going to go on Facebook or on social media. So it gives you a perspective where you say, okay, who is it that I'm going to target, and how am I going to make potential clients buy into what it is that I need to do. So COVID really has made us to rethink and to see. For us, we're now seeing a more value of having processes, having systems, and having to probably rethink and say, can we have some business in South Africa doing everything South Africa, or we need to kind of separate and say South Africa works and does things like this. The rest of Africa does things like this, so that because our if you look at our revenue is kind of split between 60-70% export and 30% South Africa. So we need to be able to say, can these two kind of are we able to operate in these two different environments with the same kind of approach, or we need to separate it and come up with a model for the rest of Africa, or a model for each of the countries that got probably
Okay. Sorry, Nick, I think you you got cut off there. Okay, I think.
Sorry, guys. The network it kind of dropped, but I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So I think maybe to Siatemba, to your question, if we can, Tebogo, sorry, your hand is still up, so I'm not sure if you still want to say something or if it's from the previous time. So just put it up again if you want to say something.
All right, sorry about that.
No problem. Okay, so I think with just to answer Siatemba's question about assumptions. So Nick and them, for instance, assume that business in South Africa is going to be the same as business elsewhere. And that's assumption that they're now validated, and it's not the case. They now obviously have the same value proposition, but they need to now basically validate the business model per country. And I'm sure each country is going to be different, and each country will require different partners, and they will have performed different activities. So they will actually have a business model that adapts to basically where they want to export their stuff to. Andile, I see you wanna.
Thank you. Yeah,
thank you, sir.
I think probably I can relate to today's topic, because Friday I had a presentation at Agribusiness Development Agency. What I did, I have my niece have a mini drone that is a toy. I brought that with me, and my sister is having a real drone, but for recreational purposes. So I brought those two demonstrations, and I on my presentation I focused more in terms of the of figures on how much one can save per hectare, the market, the size of the market, and the job opportunity that can be created. So that created more interest to them, because what I noticed in terms of information that I presented, I was ahead of them. So they like the idea. So there's more chance that they will offer me the sponsor to actually enroll for drone piloting.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. Everyone, thank you so much. Is there anything from anyone else?